Moduls Rīga piedāvā.
Yes, I think I always wanted to be a writer, but perhaps in the last decades I'm a writer in a broad sense. It means that, well, the belletristic texts don't dominate in my production. I write essays and literary criticism and so on. Well, I'm working in an institute, so the text which will be paid are not the belletristic texts. So you can think about these kind of texts not very often. But yes, I think I can about call me a writer, because actually, well, the position that the real writer is the one who is writing mostly prose, literary prose. It's not very old. In the older times, previous times, writer, the meaning, the notion of writer was much broader, man of letters. And perhaps I can say that I am a man of letters, although my prose production in the last years is not very big, has been not very big.
But do you have a need to write?
Yes, of course. It's it's always ambiguous. You can say that if you can't write, then you're thinking about these moments when you're sitting alone and writing, and then at once this moment is here, and of course this is a kind of work still. Of course there can be pages that come very quickly, but if they come quick, then you know that the next 4 ones will be much more difficult. It's always jumping, not continual. But of course, if you, for example, if you start a novel and you have written 100 pages and then it goes out of itself, then it's in this stadium it's of course it's easier to write prose. But if you make big pauses and for 2 years writing only literary criticism or essays, then to begin anew with a narrative prose, that can be a bit more difficult, of course. Then it is the distance is playing a role in it as well. If you can be every day at your work, this kind of text, then it goes easier. Yeah. Well, I myself have translated Friedrich Nietzsche into Estonian. His Exe Homo, this book about himself. But of course, everybody know that the most famous book of Friedrich Nietzsche was Zarathustra. But I can honestly say that I can't understand why this book of Nietzsche was the most important ones, because perhaps there are fans today as well, but me is not among them. And I can't understand it properly why this book was once so
because of a nice title.
Not only. There were very important ideas in it, but perhaps we can't grasp the context of these ideas anymore. We can see the ideas, but but we can't grasp the context, and so we can't value them in such a way as it was done more than 100 years ago.
You can imagine a culture or a tradition where all the books are anonymously written. But we are not living in such a tradition.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know if I can find proper words, but if you look at the art market, you know that the names are most important thing there. A little paper by Picasso, it can cost millions. And you can ask what's the real value of this little
It's kind of fetishism.
Yes, I wanted to use the same word. I think that the role of fetishism, of course, is in these regions very, very important. In art, much more than in literature, but in literature as well. But of course, the name of the author can be a kind of clue as well. Is it the right word, or schlüssel? Well, key, yes. For example, there was an very good Estonian writer, Mati Unt. I don't know if he's, yes, of course, he's translated into Latvian as well. And he wrote quite much, some texts very well, some not so good. But the style of seeing, the style of writing of Unt was very near to me. And I knew that if I take a text of him, it can be a worse one, a bad one, quite bad one as well. But something in this text still fascinates me, because the author's style of looking at the word is, for me, very, very near, how to say. So the name of the author can be a kind of leading idea as well. You already know how to read this kind of text, and you can do it. You are taught to read this author. I've written a kind of philosophy of language or philosophy of literature as well, and in this part of my work, it was important for me to understand how the word, how it's possible to live between physical world and the linguistic world, word and things, so the connection of words and things. If I'm writing, the other thing is the history of our Baltic lands here. You know, we have some 700 years of united history, Estonia and Latvia. The uniting component was the German one, and there is still very much interesting things to research and to know in this history. It is up to now, of course, politically overloaded, and there were class struggle and between the noblemen, German noblemen, and this Estonian and Latvian peasants, of course. But the history is much more interesting, because it was still a multinational land, and I think as a field of research, actually we can we can find here many new possibilities. Of course, if I'm writing of another author, then well, I can use this old notion that is not very popular. This Weltanschauung. This is in German, Weltanschauung, the world view of an author. Of course, that's not connected to the new theories and so on, but still my aim is to understand the leading ideas of his world view, how, well, some well, ideas, what were his well, the general ones.
Do you think that every person has his own
That's
worldview?
That's a very, very simple question and very important question. Yes. Well, perhaps a good author, if it seems to be a good for me, then this one has a worldview. But of course it can be in such a way then, as an analyzer, you must not only reconstruct this worldview, but invent it for this writing author, because well, because this is perhaps sometimes not clear for him or for her as well. But in this sense, perhaps criticism can even help authors, and we can help each other. Somebody writing of me, I'm writing of somebody else. We are both authors, we are both philosophers or critics, and I don't think that one role must be, well, primary, the other one secondary. I think that this kind of coexistence is quite normal in a literary world. Every time that when I begin to write, then I'm a better man. And this is a very important feeling, because I know that in such a condition, in such a writing condition, I'm not doing harm to my object, so to say. Sometimes I don't like it so very much, but this is the normal, intuitive, ethical position that when I begin to write on him, then, well, I don't do harm.
How do you think, is everything allowed in literature?
No. So, absolute questions. You can say that, of course, you can principally, theoretically write everything, but if you begin to realize it practically, then your borders are much more narrow. And there are various kind of restrictions, aesthetical and ethical as well. So then, if you're a good author, then you are earnest, and it means that you can't write anything on that paper, only theoretically, but you are not going to do it. And therefore, well, let's trust good authors.
Do you reread your previous works and do you rewrite them?
Yes, I reread them. Not only to prove myself, is it as good as I thought some time ago, but to learn some things perhaps I forgot. Well, meanwhile, to discover myself anew, because sometimes it seems that if you're working on your text, you know them all by heart in some way. But still, if you find something new in old text, that's a good sign. And do I rewrite them? Yes, quite often that can be, if you have finished your work and it's good, then some time goes and you feel that, wow, now I could do it better. And you don't want to read this one, don't want to see it anymore. But then, say some 10 years ago, after some 10 years, you take it anew and then you say that it must be in such a form as it was. And perhaps you are, of course, is it the genre of text in this respect is much more important, because if I'm written a kind of research or essay, then you can factually change it or perhaps there were some faults and so on. But in belletristic texts, it is. I think it's better not to try to rewrite them, because my experience as a researcher of literature is that when the older writer wants to rewrite his text in a better way, then he's deceiving himself mostly. He can do some things better, but yes, there have been such kind of authors in Estonian literature, and Latvian literature, and in every literature, who are, so to say, who are preparing the text as meals for the generation to come. Well, these collected works and so on, everything is waiting already. And there are others who will only write, and they don't want to put together collections or collected words, and they let it in such a way as they are. But the result will be the same.